Other arrangements, a true story. My name is Hannah. I am 28 years old, 7 months pregnant with my second child, and until last month, I genuinely believed I came from a normal family. Not a perfect one, not the kind you see in holiday commercials with matching pajamas and fresh pine trees and everyone laughing at nothing in particular. We weren't that, but we were close enough. Close enough that we showed up for each other at airports, close enough that my mom texted me dumb memes about coffee addiction and adulting, close enough that my sister and I exchanged birthday gifts and whispered family gossip at the dinner table like it was currency. My parents were grandparents, real ones. They came to school plays, they remembered Ellie's favorite pancake toppings, they called on Sunday mornings just to check in. I had no reason to doubt them. I had no reason to believe that the word family meant something fundamentally different to them than it did to me. Ellie is 8 years old. She is the kind of child who cries at the end of books, not because she's sad, but because she loved the world inside them so much that leaving it hurts. She organizes her colored pencils by shade, not just color, creating these careful little gradients on her desk that she studies before choosing the right one. She whispers sorry to bugs she accidentally steps on. She is brave in the quietest, most invisible ways and sensitive in every single other way, and she is, without question or competition, the best person I have ever known. She has been mine since the moment she arrived, and I have been hers, and that has always felt like the most solid and unshakable thing in my entire life. My husband, Daniel, is in the military. He has been deployed overseas for the better part of this year, which means that for the most part, it has been Ellie and me and the growing weight of a second pregnancy navigating the world together. We've managed. We've more than managed. We've built a quiet, careful, loving routine, school drop-offs, evening walks, her reading to me before bed because she insists she's the better storyteller, and honestly, she might be right. The day everything changed started with a doctor's appointment I almost rescheduled. I had been feeling off for a couple of weeks, a tightness in my chest that I couldn't quite explain, dizzy spells that came and went without warning, a bone-deep exhaustion that I had been chalking up to third trimester territory. I was busy. I had work emails sitting in my inbox, groceries in the car, a school permission slip on the kitchen counter that I still hadn't signed. I had what felt like 17 things happening at once, and a routine prenatal checkup felt like the least urgent of all of them. But I went. My OB looked at me, then looked at the monitor, then looked back at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It wasn't panic. It was something quieter and more deliberate than panic, a careful, controlled seriousness that made my stomach drop before she had said a single word. "I don't like what I'm seeing," she said. "I want you at the hospital now." I laughed. I don't know why I laughed, some kind of nervous reflex, maybe, or the sheer absurdity of the moment. I had groceries defrosting in the car. I had an email to send. I laughed and she didn't. "This isn't optional," she told me. "If we don't keep you monitored and something shifts, you could go into early labor. We're not taking that chance." They wheeled me into a hospital room and told me not to move, not to stress, not to think about anything except keeping my baby boy safe and steady inside me for a few more weeks. Right. Sure. No stress. Except for the part where I had an 8-year-old daughter at home, a husband on the other side of the world, and absolutely no plan. My parents lived 10 minutes away. That was the thing I kept coming back to as I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling and trying not to spiral. 10 minutes away. And they were already watching my sister's 3 kids that week. Her kids were 8, 6, and 4, and they were perfectly capable of adding one more child to the mix for a few days. Ellie adored her cousins. They had a language all their own, those 4 kids, inside jokes and made-up games, and a special way of communicating that only made sense to them. Staying with her grandparents while her cousins were there would probably feel more like a sleepover than anything else. I called my mom from the hospital bed. I explained what was happening, kept my voice steady, focused on the facts. She didn't hesitate, not even for a second. "Of course we'll take her, honey," she said. "You just focus on staying healthy. We've got it covered." I cried after I hung up. Relief, mostly. Gratitude. the particular loosening feeling of knowing that someone you love is going to show up for you. Before I was admitted, I drove to their house to drop Ellie off. She had packed her own overnight bag, her stuffed cat named Mr. Biscuit tucked right on top, her toothbrush wrapped in a cloth so it wouldn't get everything else wet, her favorite pajamas with the little stars on them folded neatly at the bottom. She had also made me a card. On the front, she had drawn a sparkly Band-Aid in purple glitter glue. Inside, in her careful handwriting with the letters that still occasionally faced the wrong direction, she had written, "Get better soon, Mama. I'll take care of Mr. Biscuit until you can." I gave my mom my credit card before I left. "Use this if she needs anything," I said. "Groceries, takeout, anything at all." She waved it away like I was being ridiculous. "Don't be silly," she said. "She's family, she'll be fine." I believed her. I drove to the hospital, I checked in, and I let myself believe that everything was going to be okay. For the first 2 days, I had every reason to believe it. Ellie called each evening. She told me about the pancake breakfasts and how Grandpa had let them watch a movie before bed even though it was a school night, and how she and her cousin Mia had built a blanket fort that took up half the living room. She sounded happy. She sounded like herself. She told me she had given my credit card to the baby so he would feel better, too. I laughed so hard my side ached. "I'll be home soon," I promised her. "I know," she said. "I believe you." Then came day 3. No call that night, just a text from my mom. "Busy day. She's resting." I told myself that was fine. 4 kids was a lot, they were probably tired. Day 4, nothing at all. I sent a text asking how things were going. No reply until mid-morning the next day. "All good, no news, rest up." "No Ellie," I asked if I could talk to her. No answer. By day 6, I had called every number in that house. My mom's cell. My dad's cell. The landline they still kept for some reason I had never understood. My sister. I left voicemails. I sent texts. I stared at my phone and told myself I was overreacting, that 4 kids were exhausting, that my mom was probably just too tired to talk, that Ellie was probably fine, that I was catastrophizing from a hospital bed because I was scared and hormonal and had nothing to do but worry. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark and thought about my daughter in that house, and I wondered if she was wondering why I hadn't called. On the morning of day 7, the doctor came in smiling. The numbers had stabilized. My blood pressure was down. The baby's heart rate was steady and strong. She said the words I had been waiting 7 days to hear. "You're stable. You can go home." I didn't go home. I drove straight to my parents' house. The driveway was empty. No minivan, no bikes leaning against the garage door, no shoes scattered across the front porch the way there always were when kids had been in and out all day. The porch light was off even though it was overcast. The windows were dark. I knocked. I waited. I knocked again, harder this time. Nothing. That's when I saw it. A piece of paper taped to the front door, slightly crooked, the corners curling up like it had been there for a while. The ink was faded at the edges, not from age, just from the particular way cheap printer paper degrades in the morning damp. I peeled it off and read it. "Sorry, sweetie. Things got too hectic. We made other arrangements. She's fine." No signature, no phone number, no address, no name. No explanation of what other arrangements meant or who had made them or where my daughter was right now. I stood on that porch and read those 3 sentences over and over again, willing them to make a different kind of sense. Other arrangements. I turned the phrase over in my head the way you turn a foreign word over on your tongue, searching for a meaning that doesn't land. Other arrangements. Other arrangements for my child. My 8-year-old daughter who whispered sorry to bugs, and organized her pencils by shade, and had packed her own overnight bag with Mr. Biscuit on top. I called my mom, straight to voicemail. My dad, voicemail. My sister, nothing. I called again, and again. I sat in my car in their empty driveway with my hospital socks still on my feet and my hands on the steering wheel, and I called until I couldn't think of anything else to do. Then I drove to the nearest CPS office and walked inside. I gave them Ellie's full name. The woman behind the desk, young, calm, wearing reading glasses on a beaded chain, asked me to wait. A few minutes later, she came back and asked me to come with her. into a smaller room with a table and 2 chairs and a box of tissues that I hoped I wasn't going to need. She told me that a child matching Ellie's description had been dropped off at a local foster placement 4 days ago. No emergency contact had been provided. No paperwork had been signed. No explanation had been given. The people who dropped her off had left before staff could ask any questions. Ellie had been with a foster family for 4 days. She had been quiet, they said, polite, a little withdrawn. I nodded like that was supposed to be reassuring. When I finally saw her, she ran to me from across the room, and then she stopped just before she reached me, and her face crumpled in a way I had never seen before. Not the dramatic, immediate crying of a child who has scraped her knee or lost her favorite thing. This was something slower and more devastating than that. This was the face of a child who had been holding herself together for 4 days and had just decided it was finally safe to let go. She didn't ask where I had been. She pressed her face into my shoulder and kept saying, over and over in this small and exhausted voice, "I'm sorry, I was good. I tried to be so good." That night she wouldn't let go of my hand. Not in the car. Not when we got home. Not when she fell asleep beside me under the blanket her dad had given her last Christmas, her fingers curled loosely around mine, her breathing finally slowly evening out. I lay there with one hand on my belly and one on her back, and I thought about the card she had made me, the sparkly Band-Aid. "Get better soon, Mama." And I kept thinking, I thought we were a normal family. I thought they loved her. Ellie stayed close in those first few days home. Too close, maybe, though I didn't say that even to myself, because close felt like the right thing under the circumstances. She followed me from room to room, the kitchen, the laundry room, the front porch, asking every minute or two whether I was still there, whether I was coming back, whether I was almost done. She stood outside the shower asking, "Are you almost done?" with a regularity that would have been funny in any other context. She didn't talk much. She just curled up beside me on the couch with Mr. Biscuit pressed against her chest like armor and let the hours pass. I didn't push her. I didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. I let her tell me things when she needed to, and I waited. At night, she woke up crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, the quiet kind, the kind that soaks into a pillow and leaves almost no trace. One night I whispered, "What are you thinking about?" She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "They said I was too much." "Who did?" I asked. She didn't answer. She turned over and pulled the blanket tighter and pretended to be asleep. The next morning I made pancakes. Ellie sat at the table and stared at them for a long time before she reached for her fork. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, she whispered, "Grandma said not to be fussy." My hands started shaking. I set down the spatula and gripped the edge of the counter and focused on breathing, because I had promised myself I would keep everything gentle and steady for her, and I meant to keep that promise, even as something in my chest was quietly coming apart. I still hadn't heard a single word from my parents. No check-in, no explanation, no apology, just that note on the door and a week of silence. On the 3rd day after I brought Ellie home, I cracked open my banking app. I hadn't checked it since before the hospital. I had just been handing my credit card off and assuming, the way you assume when you trust people, that it was being used for juice boxes and peanut butter and maybe a pizza on a Friday night. What I found instead were charges I had to read 3 times before my brain would accept them as real. Airfare, a resort in Hawaii, a rental car, a 4-night stay, spa services, room service, multiple charges over multiple days, a boat tour. I scrolled through the list with my thumb frozen, not moving, just scrolling and rereading and scrolling again. The total was significant. The location was not in question. The dates aligned perfectly with the week I had been in the hospital, the week Ellie had been in foster care, the week my parents had gone completely silent. I told myself there had to be a mistake. I told myself maybe someone had stolen the card. Maybe it had been hacked. Maybe there was some explanation that made this make sense, some version of events I hadn't considered yet. And then I opened Instagram and I stopped telling myself anything at all. My sister's profile, a story highlight titled Aloha, palm trees, cocktails with little umbrellas, a group shot at what appeared to be a beachfront restaurant, everyone in leis and sunglasses, everyone squinting happily into the sun. My parents, my sister, her husband, all 3 of her kids. Caption, family vacation before school starts. Family, not one mention of Ellie, not one word to suggest she had ever existed. They had left my daughter in foster care, without a signed form, without an emergency contact, without so much as a note explaining who she was. And they had flown across the ocean with my sister's children and posed for photographs on a boat tour and called it a family vacation. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, they had used my credit card to pay for it. I felt something snap inside me. Not anger exactly, or not only anger. Something colder and cleaner than anger. Something that felt, for the first time in a long time, like absolute clarity. I called my mom first. No answer. Then my dad. Then my sister. I tried again and again until finally, on what must have been the 5th or 6th attempt, my sister picked up. I didn't wait for hello. "Where is Mom?" I said. "Oh, she's out by the pool. Why? Is everything okay?" "You left Ellie in foster care and went to Hawaii," I said. There was a long silence. "We didn't leave her in foster care," she said finally. "We just couldn't take care of her. You were in the hospital. We had this trip planned. It wasn't ideal, but—" "You abandoned her," I said. "She is 8 years old and you left her with strangers and didn't tell anyone." "She's fine," my sister snapped. "You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "Where is Ellie in your photos?" I asked. "In your family vacation post, where is she?" "She's not my kid, Hannah." That landed differently than I expected. I went quiet for a moment, then she kept going. "You're being dramatic. Mom was overwhelmed. The kids were already packed. We had non-refundable tickets. What exactly were we supposed to do, cancel the whole trip?" "Yes," I said. "That is exactly what you were supposed to do." "She's 8, not a baby." I hung up. My phone rang less than a minute later. My mom. I picked up. Her voice was chipper. Artificially, almost aggressively chipper, the voice of someone who has decided to lead with brightness and hope you don't notice the thing underneath. "Honey, I was actually going to call you today." "When?" I said. "When exactly were you planning to call me? Before or after you got back from the resort where you charged a spa day and a boat tour to my credit card while my daughter was in foster care?" Silence. "We didn't know what else to do," she said finally. "We were overwhelmed. Ellie is not easy." "Not easy," I repeated. "She cried constantly. She didn't want to eat. She asked for you nonstop. I couldn't handle it on top of everything else." "She made you cards," I said. My voice cracked on the last word and I let it. "She packed her own bag. She drew me a picture with a sparkly Band-Aid on it. She did everything right. She was a child in a frightening situation doing absolutely everything she could to be good, and you left her." "Well," my mom said, her voice cooling, "maybe don't get pregnant again if you can't handle the logistics." I laughed. I couldn't help it, that short, breathless, bitter kind of laugh that escapes when there's no other appropriate response. "I'm done," I said. "Don't be dramatic." "Save it. You already made your choice." I hung up. When I turned around, Ellie was standing on the stairs. She had been there long enough to hear most of it. She looked at me with very wide, very serious eyes. "Grandma's mad," she said. I walked to her and knelt down on the bottom step so we were eye level with each other. "Grandma's not mad, baby, but I am, and that's okay. Mamas are allowed to be angry when someone hurts their kid." She thought about this for a long moment. Then she asked, very quietly, "Are we going to Hawaii too?" My throat tightened so sharply, I had to breathe through it. "No," I said, "we're going to do something better." I didn't know yet what better meant, but I meant to find out. That night after Ellie was asleep, I opened my laptop. I want to be clear about what I did and what I didn't do. I didn't scream. I didn't call them back and deliver a long speech about consequences. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't ask anyone's permission or advice or blessing. I just sat down at the kitchen table with the light on low and I wrote everything down. Every date. Every charge on the credit card with the amounts and the descriptions. The note on the door, I had taken a photograph of it before I pulled it off. The screenshots from my sister's Instagram. The timeline of when I had stopped being able to reach Ellie and when CPS had told me she was dropped off. I submitted it all to the police department's online reporting system, and then I closed my laptop and went to bed. I lay beside my daughter and listened to her breathe, and I fell asleep within minutes, which surprised me. I didn't feel like I had done something dramatic. I felt like I had done something obvious. In the morning, my phone started ringing before I had finished my first cup of coffee. My sister's voicemail was delivered at full volume and without a greeting. "Are you out of your mind? You called the cops on Mom and Dad while they were on vacation. What is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you've done? They're absolutely humiliated." A text from my mom followed shortly after. The police came to our hotel room. Our room, Hannah. We had to explain ourselves like criminals in front of the other guests. "I hope you're satisfied." I read both messages twice, then set my phone down on the counter. I imagined it, the knock on the hotel door, the moment of confusion, the way they would have looked at each other. Still in their vacation clothes, maybe, or just coming back from breakfast. The way the whole thing would have punctured whatever pleasant bubble they had been floating in for the past week. I imagined my mom's face and my sister's, and I waited for the guilt to arrive. It didn't. That evening, I checked my sister's Instagram again. She had deleted the Hawaii highlight. In its place was a long text post over a plain black background. "Sometimes people weaponize your pain to punish you for setting a boundary. Sometimes they call the police on their own family, but the truth always comes out eventually." I took a screenshot and added it to the folder. They came to my door the next morning, all three of them, my mom and my dad and my sister, standing on the porch in a row like some kind of warped family portrait. My mom was carrying a reusable grocery bag. My sister was already visibly furious, her jaw set, her arms crossed even before I had opened the door all the way. I stepped outside and pulled the door most of the way closed behind me. "Hannah," my mom said. Her voice was the gentle, reasonable one she used when she wanted to appear as the adult in the conversation. "We need to talk about this." "You had your chance to talk," I said. "You had 7 days to pick up the phone." "You humiliated us," my sister cut in. "You left Ellie," I said. I kept my voice flat and even. I was not going to get into a volume competition on my own front porch. "We didn't abandon her," my sister said. "We made a decision. It wasn't easy, but we made it." "You went to a beachfront resort," I said, "on my credit card, while my daughter was being looked after by strangers who didn't even know her last name." "We thought she'd be fine," my dad said, his voice tight with defensive embarrassment. "We thought." "She wasn't fine," I said. "She thought she had done something wrong. She spent 4 days trying to be good enough for people to come back for her. She cried every night, and not one of you called, not once." My mom stepped forward, her voice softening. "We care about Ellie. Of course we do. She's our granddaughter, but she's not." She stopped. "Finish the sentence," I said. "She's difficult," my mom said. "You know she gets overwhelmed. She cries over everything. She wasn't adjusting to being there with all the other kids, and we thought a foster placement would give her more individual." "You thought foster care was better than having her grandparents." "We thought she needed more structure than we could." "She needed love," I said, "not a punishment." The door behind me opened. Ellie stood in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching Mr. Biscuit against her chest, looking at the three of them with an expression I couldn't quite read. My sister's face immediately shifted into something soft and performed. "Hey, sweetheart," she said. Ellie didn't smile, didn't move. Her eyes went from my sister to my mom to my dad, and then back to my mom, and she just stood there. My mom's voice went very gentle. "We brought some of your things, sweetheart, your book, your brush." "Why didn't you come back?" Ellie asked. The silence that followed that question felt different from other silences. It had weight to it. It pressed down on all of us and no one moved. My mom opened her mouth, closed it. Then, "We thought it was for the best." Ellie turned to look up at me. "Can they go?" I looked at the three of them, my mom with her grocery bag, my sister with her crossed arms, my dad with his jaw working on something he wasn't saying. "You heard her," I said. "You're seriously doing this," my sister said. "You're cutting off your entire family over." "I'm protecting my daughter." From love, from people who have been there for you your whole life. You weren't there, I said. When it counted, you weren't there. I opened the door, stepped back inside with Ellie, and closed it. That afternoon, a check arrived in my mailbox. $1,000 made out to Ellie. No note, just the check, with "For Ellie with love" in the memo line in my mom's handwriting. I wrote "void" across the front in thick red marker and taped it to the lid of the trash can outside. My mom texted me an hour later. Pregnancy hormones make people act irrationally. When you've calmed down, we can talk. I blocked her number. That night, while Ellie was asleep, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered it because Daniel sometimes called from restricted lines when he had access to a phone. It wasn't Daniel. "Miss Porter, this is Natalie calling from Child Protective Services. We've received an anonymous report expressing concern about your home environment." My stomach dropped so fast and so completely that I had to sit down. "The report describes you as emotionally unstable," she continued, in the neutral, careful tone of someone reading from a form. "It alleges that you've been isolating your daughter from family and that you've been engaging in retaliatory behavior. You've been described as vindictive and erratic." I closed my eyes for a moment, then I opened them. "Of course it does," I said. I stayed calm through the entire call. I answered every question honestly and directly. I offered to provide references: Ellie's school counselor, her pediatrician, neighbors who had known us for years. I told the caseworker the whole story from the beginning, with dates and facts and no embellishment. I offered to send documentation. When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time in the quiet. Then I opened the folder on my laptop and kept adding to it. The things that followed were petty in ways I hadn't anticipated. A note passed to Ellie through her backpack, tucked between her notebooks, no name, just a sticky note that said, "Don't blame your mom. She doesn't mean to keep us away." Ellie had brought it to me with wide, confused eyes. "Is this from Grandma?" she asked. I didn't lie. "Probably," I said. She went to her room and closed the door without another word. I sat at the kitchen table for 20 minutes before my hands stopped shaking, and then I called the school and changed every pickup password and spoke to the principal directly. He was matter-of-fact about it. "We'll update her file," he said. "No contact from those individuals, not even a wave in the parking lot." The next morning, I found sugar poured across my entire front porch. A full bag's worth, thick drifts of it across the steps, crusted around the doormat, already drawing lines of ants up from the cracks in the concrete. Taped to the door was a page torn from one of Ellie's old drawings, with a single word written across it in thick red marker: "Liar." I cleaned up the sugar. I kept the page. I added it to the folder. My husband had been watching all of this with a quiet, deliberate patience, letting me take the lead, honoring the fact that this was my family and my decision. But that night, he sat across from me at the kitchen table and looked at me for a long moment. "We need to end this all the way," he said. I nodded. We made the plan over 2 days. We found a place, a small house in a quiet town far enough away that casual drop-bys would not be possible. We didn't tell anyone where we were going. We packed in small, careful increments, a little at a time, so there would be nothing obvious to see if anyone drove past. Ellie played in the living room and hummed to herself and seemed, in the way that children sometimes do, to sense that something was happening without asking what. The only thing I left behind was a small white envelope taped to the front door. Inside was a copy of the note they had left when they abandoned her. Below it, in my handwriting, 3 words: "Now you understand." We left at sunrise on a Tuesday. Ellie fell asleep in the back seat 20 minutes into the drive, Mr. Biscuit in the crook of her arm, the photograph from the fridge, the one of her at 4 years old on her grandfather's shoulders, the one I had kept because it was hers, not theirs, tucked into the front pocket of her backpack. I didn't cry. I didn't look back, not once. Before we crossed the county line, I pulled over at a gas station and opened my phone one last time. I logged into the police department's online reporting system and uploaded everything. The note, the credit card records, the screenshots, the CPS report, the sticky note passed through my daughter's backpack, the photograph of the sugar on my porch, the page with "liar" written in red marker. I didn't add commentary. Just facts, laid out in order with dates and amounts and documentation. When I hit submit, something in my hands went quiet. The shaking stopped. I hadn't realized until it was gone how long it had been there. 10 months later, they were charged. Child endangerment and credit card fraud. No jail time, that's the part that still sits unevenly with me some days, but fines, a permanent record, and a court order. No contact with Ellie. Not now, not ever. The judge was not ambiguous about it. We moved. The town is quiet. The house is small and exactly right. There's a lemon tree in the backyard that Ellie has decided is hers to manage, which mostly means she waters it enthusiastically and talks to it when she thinks no one can hear. The baby came early, just by a little, just enough to give us a scare, but healthy and loud and perfect in every way that matters. He arrived at dawn, which Ellie decided was a sign. "He's a morning person like me," she said, very seriously in the delivery room, and Daniel and I laughed until we cried. She named him Captain Yon, for reasons she has explained several times that have never entirely made sense to me. She reads to him every night. She holds the book with both hands and reads slowly and clearly, and he stares up at her face with the complete and total attention that only very small bobbies and very large dogs are capable of. She thinks he understands every word. She is probably right. Daniel works from home now. He makes breakfast most mornings, not always successfully, which has become its own kind of family joke. And he leaves little folded notes in my coffee mug that I find when I'm still half asleep, and which have made me cry more than once. He sings lullabies off-key, which Ellie used to protest and now secretly requests. Ellie is okay now. Really okay, not performing okay, not coping okay, but actually, genuinely in her own skin okay. She still organizes her pencils by shade. She still cries at the ends of books. She still whispers sorry to bugs. Last week she taped a new drawing to the refrigerator. 4 figures standing in a yard under an enormous yellow sun, with something that might be a lemon tree off to one side. She had labeled each figure carefully. Mama, Daddy, me, Captain Yon with a little crown drawn above his head. At the top, in her careful handwriting with the letters that still occasionally face the wrong direction, she had written, "Our real family." I have taken a photograph of it. I have looked at it more times than I will admit. And sometimes, in the evenings, when she thinks Daniel and I are busy with the baby or cooking or not paying attention, I hear her lean over the bassinet and whisper to her brother in that serious, quiet voice she uses when she means something completely. "You're safe now," she tells him. "I'm going to make sure." That's all I need.